This is Ken Pyle at the Broadband Community Summit, and we're with Aaron Deacon of KC Digital Drive, right? So tell us what KC Digital Drive is.
So KC Digital Drive is really a community-driven effort to make sure that we take advantage of the fiber infrastructure that's going into the city. It came out of a bi-state task force that was appointed by Mayor Reardon and Mayor James. After both cities got it, they realized, okay, there's a unique opportunity for collaboration here. They appointed a team of community leaders to sort of think about what this means for the city, for the region, and put out a playbook last summer that really targeted 4 key strategic areas: digital inclusion and digital literacy, economic development, including sort of workforce skills, as well as company attraction and industry incubation, driving pilot projects and applications and really developing use cases for a next-gen network, and then sort of a leadership piece in terms of recognizing that we're the first large U.S. metro to get gig to the home, and we want to help other cities figure out how to do that too, and figure out when you look at those use cases what it can do and how you implement. So we've been, KC Digital Drive is about 6 months old now, and I had been active in a lot of different community efforts kind of ever since the Google announcement in Kansas City, both in terms of sort of the use cases as well as the community and neighborhood outreach activity, trying to get neighborhoods qualified for service. Helped out with the Mayor's Vice and Innovations team in terms of creating the playbook, and now I'm charged with implementing it, basically.
So is it it's at this point a public effort to drive adoption of the fiber? Is that going to also entail a private aspect to it too? Yeah,
so it was interesting. The cities put some money in and said, here's some seed money. Now go and figure out what your revenue model is. Okay. So it's a civic startup really, and it is very intentional in knowing that we need to have government support, we need to have philanthropic support, we need to have private support, and really bring together all aspects of the community, as well as citizen support, right? And that's sort of the fourth pillar that you get left off, because it may not have the same kind of organizational entity behind it, but we really want to make sure that citizens are empowered to drive how this has outcomes for the community.
Well, it sounds like you're already impacting the community with the fiber and the way you're getting these fiber hoods kind of lit up. And it sounds like, based on what Rick was saying, it's not going to one neighborhood. It is truly going to the neighborhoods that you wouldn't necessarily expect broadband to be targeted at, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects to this. I mean, one, when we started talking about this project, it was all about gig to the home, and you start that conversation, and then you realize, wow, there's a lot of people who don't have any internet to the home, and that's really a separate issue. When you think about how do you bring internet to people who don't have it right now, regardless of what the speed is, and then how do you convince people who maybe have 5 megs or 10 megs right now that it might be worthwhile to invest the extra money in a gig. So there's really 2 projects. Both of which have merit and have sort of different strategies that you need to employ them. But we have been successful in at least giving access to a lot of the less well-off neighborhoods in town. There's a lot of concern that there'd be sort of a natural redlining that would happen through this demand-driven rollout. And I think that we've done a good job of mitigating that to a considerable degree. And I think by the end of this year that we should have service available in all the areas that have signed contracts.
The thing that, to me, is an area where you could really make an impact and kind of mitigate some of the cost aspects are these new applications that may develop, whether it be education, health. Are you seeing some of those applications already starting to foment?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a big part of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do. So there's a couple approaches, but one is the sort of straight entrepreneurial play, where you try to get smart people together and developers and hackers and say, oh, look, you're going to have this network. What do you want to build? And so there's some of that activity, and we've certainly got a very vibrant entrepreneurial community in Kansas City. But what's especially interesting to me, and sort of the approach that KC Digital Drive has taken, is to build up potential user teams. So I've got like an education team that meets regularly, a healthcare team, a group with the libraries, started to talk with public safety officials, people who do emergency weather management, and get these groups together to identify what the problems are. And this is not, this is kind of, business development 101, right? Is that you want to be solving problems. But if you have those community groups who are, first of all, engaged in the question of, gosh, there's this big fiber asset coming in and we don't know what to do with it. So they're sort of on guard for that anyway. But then you start having the conversation about what the needs are that they're trying to solve, and then you can bring in the entrepreneurs and the developers to actually address those questions rather than just address the much more difficult question of what do you do with a gig.
And it seems like one of the themes of that, and especially the fact that it's called a fiberhood, it's part of a neighborhood. It seems like local would be something that kind of runs a thread through all this. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's to go back to sort of the two tiers of activity. On a digital inclusion, from that end of the spectrum, the kinds of things that you can do with civic engagement, with just getting neighbors involved, with teaching people how online services can help them connect. That's not anything that you need fiber for or a gig for, but it's still something that needs to happen in order to really utilize the network. So there's a lot of that kind of work going on. And then an interesting example is we did a hackathon, Hacking the Gigabit City, is sort of our series that we're trying to connect developers with the institutional partners in town. And there was a really interesting idea that came out of this, and we work with the US Ignite team also, who's dealing with this on a national scale, right? But is to have a software as a service, sort of virtual checkout from the libraries. So if say you want to use Illustrator or do video editing at home, but you don't want to buy the software because it's very expensive, the library can buy a single copy and can let you check it out. You can use it on a virtual machine from the library on your home computer. We tested this a couple weeks ago, and even using a really old laptop, if you were doing it on a server that was hosting it, you actually got a better experience using the software than if you had the software actually loaded on the laptop, because having the processing power of the server and the gig connection to bring it into your house just made it easier. Yeah. And so that's a way to extend sort of services that people might use into neighborhoods where they might not otherwise have access.
That's pretty powerful. It truly extends the data center to the edge, to the individual, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a lot of people don't think about that. They just think of what are the, what's high bandwidth, and they don't think of all the other sort of aspects of a next generation network that sort of enable you to do things and think about how to solve problems in different ways. And so, just sort of having huge amounts of computing power at ready access is a different sort of application that people aren't used to thinking about.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I know last week at NAB, the cloud in video was a big theme, but part of the problem is if you have a little pipe between where you are and that cloud, it's kind of useless, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, people still don't know what to make of the cloud. I mean, even though it's become sort of a, everyone can, not everyone, but I mean, a lot of people, talk about the cloud, and my wife, oh yeah, the cloud, but a lot of people don't necessarily like it or don't know what it means, or in some cases don't trust it. But there's a really transformative power there.
Well, and it sounds like what you're doing is helping the community of Kansas City understand that transformative power and figure out ways to use it.
That's right.
So, Aaron, I really appreciate your time, and good luck.
You bet. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks.